ahead and open that.
Hello, and welcome to Omniversity. Thanks. Thanks, Discord. It's somebody else's Discord. It's interrupting this program right now. But anyways, hello, and welcome to Omniversity, the show where we break down a character, we talk about their origins, their history through media, and we look at a fun topic of discussion. Today, we're going to be looking at Ahsoka.
With Ahsoka's first solo project in full swing right now at time of recording, we decided it was a really good time to really dive into her character. A character that didn't start off in everyone's good graces, but over time really became a lot of people's favorite, and myself included. I mean, nowadays she's just such an iconic, correlation to the story. I really enjoy her. She's great.
Definitely one of Star Wars' biggest characters nowadays.
We're going to be looking at her initial creation all the way up until her most recent appearance in Book of Boba Fett.
Yep. As Star Wars fans know, kind of Ty touched on this a little bit. Ahsoka, when she debuted, she didn't have kind of the overwhelming, sensation of love and just absolute passion for the character that we see nowadays. Initially she was kind of met with a lot of hate.
She was annoying.
That was the take, yeah. A lot of people claiming that she was annoying, obnoxious, comparisons to Jar Jar Binks. And I feel like with all the prequel stuff, anything that comes out after, the original 3 films, it's very hard to, I guess, kind of catch.
It's an uphill climb.
Yeah.
Compared to the original trilogy characters.
Unless you're like Boba Fett and you just have super cool armor and everybody just likes you based off your appearance, it's not as easy to be beloved in Star Wars as you might think, because the Star Wars fan base is just full of a lot of haters,
a lot of angry nerds.
A lot of angry nerds. Initially, actually, I didn't mind Ahsoka. I was about 10 or 11 whenever the original Clone Wars movie came out. And for me, I was just kind of excited that there was more Star Wars,
I was in a similar boat. I guess I wasn't old enough to hate her as a character so much. I was just really excited to see Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
And Ahsoka was someone who was just with them. And then slowly she wasn't someone she was with them. She was her own character, a great character, and one whose storylines I wanted to follow just as much as everyone else's.
Yeah, actually, Ashley Eckstein, whenever the original Clone Wars movie came out, Star Wars fans kind of do what they normally do and, hate kind of everything initially. Ashley Eckstein, she was talking in interviews about how, she was kind of surprised about the initial reception to the character and, just urged fans to be patient with her performance and the character as a whole, because by that point, when the Clone Wars movie came out in 2008, they had already filmed all of season 1 of Clone Wars, and I think we're getting close to finishing season 2 of the TV series.
She had seen the growth of the character already, and she had seen that she becomes her own thing.
Yeah.
And she gets away from that annoying, snippy attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And
Snips.
And she was just begging people to give it a chance.
Yeah. And she really does grow a lot. I think in season 3, we actually see the character model change. They even kind of they give her a different outfit and look. She definitely has a growth literally in the show. Not just the character is growing, but she is also aging and maturing as well, kind of like you said, becoming less snippy and more of just a badass Jedi. And especially Ahsoka is interesting because she is a Jedi that we focus on in a time period where Jedi don't really act like Jedi. They're more like generals in a war, and she's being taught how to be a Jedi in war.
Not a peacekeeper, but a commander.
Yeah.
Fortunately, despite her slow start and her kind of negative reception, Dave Filoni was very passionate about her as a character.
Original creator.
Yeah, and put a lot of work into making her something. And he succeeded thanks to, again, his passion and Ashley's incredible voice acting. Over time, she really carved out her own spot and has become a lot of people's favorites in the entire Star Wars universe.
Yep. Definitely out of the newer stuff, probably the biggest standout of all of new canon. Ahsoka, originally, she was created for the Clone Wars movie, which was originally intended to be a kind of 4-episode series premiere, but they thought, maybe we can squeeze some juice out of this. Let's turn it into a movie, get a cinema release, have a box office run. Here are the numbers on the screen. She was originally created for that. She was supposed to be Obi-Wan's Padawan originally, and the entire show wasn't even going to be the version we got. Originally, the show was planned to be much more of like a Star Wars Rebels style show, in the sense that it's centered around like a crew, much like what we got in Rebels, in the sense that you have like your scoundrel, like your Han Solo type, you have like the Jedi type and the Padawan, you have like the big strong man, and you have like the renegade, like bounty hunter type.
A bit more of like an intimate family style story.
That was the vibe.
To a, general view of the entire Clone Wars.
Right. Anakin and Obi-Wan were supposed to make appearances in that original version, but they were not supposed to be like the original focus of that show. The original version of Ahsoka was actually a character named Ashla. She was the kind of original concept for Ahsoka. She was supposed to be like the Ezra Bridger type character. She had a master named Sindak, who is like the Kanan Jarrus-esque character. They had a smuggler pilot named Cad, later who would be adapted to become the bounty hunter Cad Bane, one of your personal favorite characters, Ty.
I love me some Cad Bane.
Oh, yeah. His mistress, Lupe, great name, and their Gungan strongman, Lunker.
I just hate that so much.
God, could you imagine? Like, just a big, beefy Gungan warrior just, like, running around with you?
I can see why they moved away from it based off the reception of Jar Jar Binks, and that they were just like, maybe we shouldn't have another Gungan as a main character.
Ty, can you just imagine, just, like, they run into some droids or whatever, and it's like, Mr. Smash! You know, like, yeah, exactly. I could just picture it now.
It's awful.
Yeah, but what we ended up getting, actually, that they turned that Gungan strongman into Zeb, who, they developed his whole race of people, the Lestat and whatever, in very interesting ways later on.
Far
but
more compelling, in my opinion.
definitely more compelling than whatever's going on with the Gungans and their shiny metal orbs or whatever they're doing. But yeah, Ahsoka was originally named Ashla. I'm definitely going to butcher the pronunciation on this. Cthulhu? Yeah. But Lucas didn't want her to share her name with his name for the light side, so he had Henry Gilroy look in a history book to get an idea for a name. They ended up settling on the name coinciding with the ancient Indian emperor Ashoka, whose name literally means without sorrow.
A lot of Ahsoka's design is derived from San from Princess Mononoke, which is one of my favorite Ghibli movies.
Same.
And she's one of my favorite designed characters
Yeah.
as well. So that was something that I really enjoyed reading and didn't really know, but now that I do, I can really see some of the similarities.
Yeah, it makes
between the
sense.
two characters.
Dave Filoni has like a thing for wolves, so
He does.
I could see where he would get the idea for Ahsoka kind of based off that. Filoni struggled to write this character, saying he just didn't have any idea of how to write a 14-year-old girl.
I wouldn't either.
Right there with you. He broke through that wall when he decided to write Ahsoka as a Jedi who happens to be an adolescent girl instead of a 14-year-old female Jedi. He even began thinking of future storylines she can be involved in, like the confrontation between her and Vader that we get in Star Wars Rebels Season 2, which...
Awesome.
Huh,
So good.
some of the best Star Wars right there. Lucas had the fantastic idea to use her as a foil to Anakin to further progress him as a character. The relationship really forced Anakin to kind of take a step back, put himself in the shoes of the master. Through that, he sees the qualities that he had, kind of in Obi-Wan's tutelage: stubbornness, brash, irresponsible, emotional, and Ahsoka, who's at a similar point to where we see Anakin at kind of the beginning of Attack of the
Jake
Clones.
Lloyd type Anakin.
Yeah, really annoying, as the Star Wars fans said.
Now this is pod racing.
The idea of her like being annoying, like it's on purpose. She's mirroring how Anakin was at that age, and Obi-Wan, I think, even comments in the movie. He's like, "Yeah, you see what it's like? See what I have to deal with?" Yeah. Their dynamic is so critical, I think, because we don't really see how Anakin becomes the full-fledged Jedi Knight that we see in Revenge of the Sith coming from Attack of the Clones. But with this, in the middle, the Clone Wars movie and the Clone Wars TV show, Ahsoka being such a major part of Anakin's development, her growing off that as well, she plays a pivotal role in that translation of character. Yeah, but George Lucas, he suggested that she be Anakin's Padawan, and it's been history ever since.
Ahsoka is a Tagrata, similar to Shakti, that was born on the planet Sheely. She was born in 36 BBY and was born with an incredibly strong connection to the Force, as seen in the TV series Tales of the Jedi. In 33 BBY, Jedi Master Plo Koon traveled to Sheely.
Presumably on vacation.
Absolutely, yeah, spring break.
Just going for a holiday, yeah.
And he found Ahsoka, and they instantly connected through the Force, and he took her back to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, where she was inducted into the Order as a youngling at the ripe age of 3.
During her time as a youngling, which was around 33 BBY to about 22 BBY, kind of right up until we see her first appearance in the Clone Wars movie, she was under the tutelage of Jedi Master Yoda, as all younglings were in this time period. He was the one that brought her to Ilum with the help of Jedi architect droid Huang, who we've recently seen pop up in the Ahsoka Disney Plus show. She constructed her first lightsaber. Huang's been around since the High Republic era, actually. He's been helping Jedi construct lightsabers for hundreds and hundreds of years. He's made a few appearances in the Clone Wars TV show as well. We'll definitely be seeing a lot more of him in the future, I think.
I feel like I've seen him in Doctor Who a few times.
Yeah, he's in the TARDIS. He's traveling around, fighting dialects.
Our first on-screen introduction to Ahsoka was the 3D animated Clone Wars movie, voiced by the aforementioned Ashley Eckstein.
Wonderful.
Fantastic. I've always been a pretty big fan of Ahsoka. She was the first Jedi we saw use that reverse grip saber style, which was super unique and super cool. Her secondary lightsaber kind of is that Shoto style blade, makes her look more of like a samurai type character. It wasn't very common among the whole Jedi Order, but her being as skilled of a duelist as she is, she had no problem mastering the super unique style. The multiple lightsaber style is called Jarkai. Her specific form with the reverse grip is known as Shien. Like I said before, a very, very uncommon style for a Jedi. Upon her initial arrival to the front lines of Christophsis, Obi-Wan was under the impression that Ahsoka was going to be his new Padawan.
So was Dave Filoni.
So was Dave Filoni. But as it turns out, the Jedi Council and George Lucas...
Oh yeah, he's on the council for sure.
...thought it would be better for Anakin to teach her. Anakin was very unaccepting of her, but throughout the course of the film, we see how brave and smart she is. You know, they kind of build that camaraderie pretty quickly.
There's some good sequences in that film.
There's some pretty good ones.
I love the one where they do the tanks crawling up the wall, and like they're having to scale it as well, and there's like shit falling on them.
It's pretty
and
nifty.
Yeah, good stuff.
We also get their pretty infamous nicknames from that movie. You know, Snips coming from her snippy attitude.
And Sky Guy.
You're stuck with me, Sky Guy.
What did you just call me?
Sky Guy, just a
Sky
play
Guy.
on Anakin's last name. Not
How
a
original.
super inspired nickname,
No.
but pretty good nonetheless. After the movie, the two would kind of move on together into the remainder of the Clone Wars.
Yeah, the Clone Wars TV series, it was pretty big part of my childhood personally. It aired on Cartoon Network on Friday nights, and I remember like just being so excited for every new episode. I watched it live every Friday.
Waited for it every week.
Yeah, big deal for me. But Ahsoka saw a ton of growth. There was episodes where she lost her lightsaber and learned the values of patience and persistence and recovery of her weapon, dealing with the difficulties of like forming attachment as a Jedi towards her friend and love interest, separatist Lux Bonteri, and slowly kind of becoming a leader among her peers. You know, especially like Clone Wars finale, you know, all those clone troopers painting their helmets and
having full faith in her despite the fact that she was no longer part of the Jedi Order, but she built up that level of respect and just a commanding presence.
Absolutely.
They still followed.
Over the course of the show, her and Anakin, you know, they become very close. The relationship gives us some really early looks into the nastier side of Anakin, you know, because I feel like this is the opportunity for Anakin to be a father figure to somebody, and you just know that he's a bad dad. I mean, we all know he's a bad dad.
He's a historically terrible father.
So it was never really bound to go great, and it doesn't necessarily end amazing either, but we'll talk about that a little later. But Ahsoka also nurtures a friendship with Captain Rex, a character who has seen a ton of screen time recently in multiple new Star Wars properties. Towards the end of the 5th season, Ahsoka is framed for a bombing and a murder. They were both actually committed by fellow Padawan Barriss Offee.
It was a Luminara Unduli's Padawan.
Yeah,
friend.
and originally they were friends, and they had this whole like connection together, and Barriss is like, nah, actually, you.
Which we don't really know where Barriss is now in the canon. Like, she is just kind of missing.
Maybe she'll turn up again later.
Yeah, who knows?
She was eventually found innocent, but she felt betrayed by the Jedi Council and decided to leave the Order instead of accepting their offer to return. She does make a triumphant return in the final season of the show, which took place concurrently with the events of Revenge of the Sith, in her arc, which is easily some of the best Star Wars ever put to the screen.
And it's definitely the best of the final season, that's for sure.
Hooey. Yeah, that whole stuff with the sisters, yikes.
Oh.
In these episodes, Ahsoka comes back to assist the Republic in the siege of Mandalore. Her and Rex are tasked with capturing Maul. We really see her progression, not only as a character, but as like a duelist when she takes on Maul. And I love that fight sequence too. They actually got Ray Park back in to do motion capture for that sequence.
I read some stuff about that. It was really, really well done. Really crisply animated.
So good. And like, I just feel like Ahsoka is in prime form right there. You know, she has no reason to hold back, and it's like there's so much going on, and just epic finale. Loved it. But she ends up defeating him, and Maul reveals that Darth Sidious has a plan to turn her master to the dark side and offers to help stop it, but instead, Ahsoka, believing her master to be infallible, does not believe Maul and takes him into custody. Later on, we are once again forced to witness the horrors of Order 66 as Rex and all of the other clone troopers turn on Ahsoka. In the chaos, she releases Maul, manages to free Rex from his inhibitor chip, and the two make a daring escape. Awesome sequence, by the way, of the ship like falling out of the sky and them trying to save each other, and really, really good stuff. Then Ahsoka and Rex bury the dead clones and part ways. Ahsoka leaves behind her lightsabers that Anakin had like just given her as a sort of like tribute to the clones whose deaths that she definitely did not want on her conscience. Over the course of the series, fan and critical reception to the character made a massive upswing, many people having hailed Ahsoka as like the true moral compass of the series. And that said, her leaving the Jedi Order was a major part of why Anakin fell to the dark side.
In 2016, we had the self-titled Ahsoka novel, which kind of follows the events post-Maul fight and pre-Star Wars Rebels. Ahsoka, who is currently going by the name Ashla, a tribute to her original name, finds herself on Outer Rim planet Rada, where she becomes a mechanic before inevitably seeing Imperial officers kind of stripping the planet for its resources and overall causing Empire-related problems. They muscle their way in, they increase work hours for the local farms, and eventually Ahsoka starts to build one of the very first rebel cells. After a few small little scraps with the Empire, things get pretty hot, and Ahsoka actually leaves Rada, comes back a couple times, leaves and comes back, doing a guerrilla-style warfare on the Empire on Rada. Rada. There's a pretty neat lightsaber duel with the sixth brother, which ends with her purifying his kyber crystals in his double-bladed lightsaber. Hence why the next time we see Ahsoka in Star Wars Rebels, she has those white-bladed dual lightsabers, which, you know, all of this novel is really just the lead up to Ahsoka officially joining the rebellion and taking on the codename Fulcrum.
Right. And we see Fulcrum make appearances in Star Wars Rebels, which, as we talked about earlier, this was kind of the amalgamation of the original Clone Wars ideas with a lot of newer ideas kind of being incorporated into that. Ahsoka pops up a few times in season 1, but we don't really see her until season 2, gets a much larger role kind of in the overarching narrative, has a very emotional scene where she realizes that Darth Vader is her former master, Anakin Skywalker, and like just sends like an absolute like shockwave through the Force and just ripples through her emotional core. It's like such a moving scene, I think, for an animated show to have. But we also, in that same season later, we get the Rebels season 2 finale where Ezra, Ahsoka, and Canon travel to a Sith temple in search of a holocron. Ahsoka ends up in a fight with Darth Vader at the end of this confrontation, and the temple starts collapsing all around them. The holocron starts going wild, and Ezra and Kanan get away, but we don't find out what happens to Ahsoka.
Yeah, it's left pretty ambiguous.
Yeah. At the time, when I watched that, I was just kind of like, wow, they just killed Ahsoka. Like, okay.
I was under the impression that she was murked.
Yeah, thought that was it. Because at the end of that episode, you see Darth Vader leave, and it's just him. So, you know, like what happened? I do like the idea, though, you know, because later on, Ezra goes to the world between worlds, and he pulls Ahsoka back into like the present day, basically. And that happens, and then it cuts to like Darth Vader just like falling through the floor. Like the entire temple is collapsing around him, and yet he still somehow survives. But yeah, it is left kind of ambiguous. Like I said, she does reappear in the 4th season when Ezra grabs her out of that moment, brings her into the present. We don't really see what happens to her directly after that, because he pulls her out of that moment, and then they get separated again. We at the end of Rebels, we see, you know, kind of a cut to what happens after Return of the Jedi, and the Empire never returned to Lothal. There was never a reason for Ahsoka to go there until after the war. Apparently, she returns and starts to train Sabine Wren as a Jedi.
Yeah, and then the next time we see Ahsoka, she is no longer animated. For the very first time, we get to see her in live action, played by Rosario Dawson, who I think does a pretty good job.
Yeah, Dave Filoni actually said in 2016 that he didn't want Ahsoka to be thought of as an animated character exclusively, but rather a Star Wars character who can exist in all forms of media. And there's actually another Star Wars character who exists outside of the live action material that I'd just kill to see. So if you're listening, Mr. Mouse, and I know you are, let's make that happen, okay?
She makes her debut in season 2 of The Mandalorian. Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, is offered a Beskar spear to kill a mystery woman by Morgan Elsbeth. This mystery woman happens to be Ahsoka, who then communicates with who we at the time knew as the Child, and discovers that his name is Grogu. He was a youngling on Coruscant during the events of Order 66. Din actually asks Ahsoka to train Grogu in the Force. She refuses, noting that he has too much of connection and all of the fear and anger inside of him from Order 66 just makes it too dangerous to train him in the ways of the Force. Mando and Ahsoka team up to defeat Morgan Elsbeth, the woman who commissioned Din to kill Ahsoka. After they do, Ahsoka demands to know where Grand Admiral Thrawn is located, the man who disappeared with Ezra Bridger at the end of Star Wars Rebels.
Is he a man?
He's an alien man.
Blue guy.
The blue guy who disappeared at the end of Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah, if being a Grand Admiral doesn't work out, he could always be a backup for the Blue Man Group.
Backup for the Blue Man
Yeah,
Group.
just like Tobias Funke from Arrested Development.
Mr. Funke. After this confrontation, Ahsoka gives the Beskar spear to Din Djarin and sends both him and Grogu on their way to find another potential master for him. Ahsoka makes a brief appearance in the 6th episode of Book of Boba Fett, where she leads Din to Grogu, who is at the time being trained by Jedi Master Luke Skywalker. She helps convince Djarin that he should not interfere with his training, but does agree to give Grogu the Beskar armor that Din had forged for him. At the time of recording, we are about 6 episodes into the Ahsoka live-action TV series. We're not going to go into too much detail on that. Hopefully we can do another video where we just talk about it in its entirety, because the ramifications of that show are pretty big, and there's a lot going on, and I feel like it deserves, and Ryan feels like it deserves, a video of its own.
Yes, I'm allowing Ty to speak for me.
We are super excited to delve further into not only her story, but Ezra Bridger's and Sabine Wren's as well. All right, final thoughts. Ahsoka Tano is a badass. And I'm super happy that over the last 10 years, her character has seen the amount of growth that she has and has become one of the most sensational characters in modern Star Wars, and that her critical and public opinion has drastically increased. I think it's going to keep doing so, and the ramifications that her character and this Ahsoka TV show has on the future timeline is going to be huge, and I'm just super, super ready to see that expand. What are your final thoughts on Ahsoka Tano?
I'm just really happy to see her have made the translation to live action seemingly pretty well. I want to see more. I feel like I haven't seen enough, but I also feel like it's hard just to be a new character in Star Wars in general. You know, we look at like Jar Jar Binks, you look at Rey, you know, all these newer Star Wars characters who a lot of the Star Wars fandom kind of don't really accept because they just don't really care for their storylines and their, movies. But Ahsoka is one of those characters who has kind of climbed her way up from the grime and the hate and is now beloved. And I'm really happy to see that too, because, like I mentioned earlier, I never had a problem with her character. And for me, just seeing her growth, it's just made me love her even more. So really happy that Dave Filoni has kind of put a nice little bow on top of everything with the show, kind of taking the Rebel storylines in directions that I've been waiting to see for years now. And really excited to see what he's doing for his Star Wars movie, because Dave Filoni, he hasn't released too many details about it, but he is making a standalone Star Wars film that will be the culmination of most of the Disney Plus storylines that we've been seeing played out in The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and pretty soon the Skeleton Crew. So all those storylines will be culminating in Dave Filoni's Star Wars movie. So be looking forward to that.
I'm really happy to hear that we're on the same page, Ryan. We usually are.
We're usually on the same page about Star Wars, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. This has been Omniversity. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, give us a subscription, and leave a comment on what your favorite moment in Ahsoka's history was, or maybe tell us something that perhaps we missed in this video. This has been The Flick in the Frame, and have a fantastic rest of your day.
We'll see you next time.
I like that.